Hello dear friends, this is Bob Hatton. This is The Encourager. We are now entering into part 4 of this magnificent plan that God has got for us. We followed Israel as they came out of Egypt as a people of slaves, and God delivered them. He brought them to the Mount Sinai, and there he made a covenant with them, and he became their God, and he lived in their midst, and they were with him. He gave them his law for them to follow, and he was their God. And the leader of this people was Moses, and Moses was a man like no other man who'd ever lived, I believe, at that time. And towards the end of the 5th book of Moses, the book of Deuteronomy, there's a promise there that God would send a Messiah. That's Jesus. God would send Jesus in many years later. And this Messiah, the one who is the anointed one, who God would send, he would be like Moses. Now we could imagine it if somebody says Moses would be like Jesus. That fits. But Jesus would be like Moses. God saw the quality of this man. And in another place he says that there is nobody who is as humble or as meek as my servant Moses. God was really proud of this guy. And again, when he was speaking to Miriam and Aaron, the brother and sister of Moses, and God said to them, he said, I speak to the prophets through dreams and through visions. I give them to sort out. I speak to them like this and that, but I speak to my friend Moses, or I speak to my servant Moses from face to face as a man would speak to his friend. This Moses, he had a really close relationship with God. But unfortunately, towards the end of his life, he did what quite a number of other people did. He said, I'm going to do it my way. And God said, I want you to do something. As the people of Israel once more started to complain, we got nothing to drink. We're so thirsty. There's no water here. Moses, God, do something. So this had happened once before at the beginning, and God had told Moses, go to the rock and take your staff and hit the rock with your staff. And when he did that, water flowed out of the rock, and it wasn't just a few drops. It was enough water so that about 3 million people got something to drink, plus all the animals. That was quite a lot of water. So towards the end of his life, the same problem arises with nothing to drink. Oh, Moses, why did you bring us here? So God says, okay, Moses, this time I want you to go to the rock and I want you to speak to the rock. But Moses just couldn't bring himself to do that. He couldn't bring himself to go to the rock and speak to the rock and expect that water would flow out of it. So he did what he'd done before. He got a method that had proved to work in the past. So he took his staff and he hit the rock. And you know what? Water flowed out of the rock. He was a success. It worked again. He'd done it before, now he'd done it again. And he showed that he is the man God. He is the man of power for the hour. But God wasn't pleased with this, because it's not our success that shows whether we are walking with God, but it's actually our obedience. And in another place in the Bible, God says that I would rather have obedience than sacrifice. And Moses had failed his final examination by saying, I'm going to do it my way, like so many other people in the past. He was a great guy. He was a man of God. Never had a man lived like Moses, but in the end, he failed his final examination. Oh boy, he did it his way. And I think what we learn here is that God wants us to be obedient. So, but after that, and what had happened, that the whole Exodus generation had also died. They should have entered the promised land, but because of the disbelief, because they weren't prepared to trust God, they weren't prepared to be obedient to God, they died in the desert. and only Caleb and Joshua were able of this Exodus generation were able to enter the promised land. Now they go in there. They're people of faith, and of course we have some problems with this book in the 21st century because it's about a military conquest. Joshua is a general. Joshua is a soldier, and Joshua goes about and conquers the cities. But we've got to see this from the eyes of people who lived 3,500 years ago, or even that's about the time of when Israel entered the promised land, about 3,500 years ago, and things were different there. And we look with the eyes of the 21st century, but when we get to the 22nd century, people will be looking at things in a completely different way. So let's not get too judgmental. And God was judging these people who lived in Canaan because of some of the terrible things that they had done, and he was saying enough is enough, as that also happens in our time. Anyway, and please also don't get too mixed up with this piece of land that God was giving the Israelites so many years ago as the modern day Israel. And now the land is important. Jesus lived there for so many years, so it's very important. But it's not that what the Bible is talking about when it speaks to us. All the promises that God gave to Abraham and the people of God in the Old Testament, they've been upgraded. In the book of Hebrews, he says that old covenant, it's now obsolete. There's something new, there's something better, there's something greater. And for instance, in Psalm 37, the Bible tells us, that the meek will inherit the land. Well, Jesus upgrades this promise, and in the Beatitudes, in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, the meek, they are going to inherit not the land, they are going to inherit the earth. And also when we read the book of Romans chapter 4, it says Abraham and his successors will inherit the earth. And as as Joshua goes into the promised land, he conquers first of all the city of Jericho. We all know this story, or many of us know the story from the Sunday school, and the walls come tumbling down. But he spared one family, and that was the family of Rahab. Did he spare her because she was a very good woman? She was very moral? Well, it wasn't that actually. She was a prostitute. She was a liar, but she believed God. And it's this trusting God that seems to be one of the most important things. And God brought her into the chosen people. And not only was she part of this people, but she became one of the ancestors of Jesus. Jesus is a descendant of this woman with so many bad traits, but one good thing, she trusted God. Just showing us, that Joshua and Jesus, that's actually the same name, Jeshua in Hebrew. And this is maybe just a picture, just a shadow of what Jesus would do on the cross. He would purchase people from all nations, from all languages, from all tribes, and he would bring them. They would become one person, one nation under God, and they would worship him, and they would worship the one on the throne and the Lamb forever and ever. This is quite an interesting book, and I'm very excited about it. I like Joshua. Joshua is one of my heroes. How he takes the land, and it's only the book is only over a period of about, I think, 20-30 years, and he takes most of the land, and Israel settles there. And how the story continues, let's wait till tomorrow. God bless you. Have a good day. You're Bob Hatton, your encourager.